Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the U.S. Capitol building. If you've joined us today for the insurrection, please make sure you pick up a promotional leaflet on the way in, stay inside the safety cordons at all times, and if you get lost, speak to one of our Capitol police officers. They'll be sure to point you in the right direction.
I don't know if you guys ever saw that entire video. By the way, look at the community note on here. That they've already got this one. They probably have mine. Is my video community noted right now? Is my stream community noted because I put January 6th in the title? I'd be curious about that. If it isn't, it will for sure.
What's up, guys? Your boy Benny. In any good murder mystery, the more you begin to unravel the case, the more you begin to see that you can't trust anybody. The more all of the facts of the case become distorted and confusing. The more you begin to question who the actual culprit was, who's the actual...
And for the record, and we've talked about this many times, but Trump actually requested National Guard presence on January 6th. That is on record. We know about that. Now, they don't want to admit that, the Democrats and the left and the people that have weaponized January 6th. But yes, that did happen. Like, Trump did request National Guard, and Nancy Pelosi did not follow through.
Murderer. There was a murderer on January 6th. It was a federal agent who slaughtered unarmed, innocent, veteran Ashley Babbitt, who was inside of the United States Capitol and peacefully protesting and was killed in cold blood without warning. There was also another murder on January 6th, and that murder was the murder in American people's faith in law enforcement and in the practices of law enforcement, as we saw multiple layers of mass law enforcement failures. And I can speak to this personally because during the BLM riots, just that summer, I watched Washington, D.C. get torched effectively to the ground. I watched some of our most precious and prized monuments be desecrated. I watched Donald Trump get taken down into a secured bunker because these left-wing orcs had overrun the White House and were burning down buildings on White House property, injuring hundreds of Secret Service officers. You never hear about that. Nobody was even charged. Isn't that wild? This is
amazing how that got swept under the rug and you don't really hear about that. It's amazing, isn't it? Wonderful.
This is a photo of the Lincoln Memorial when the National Guard was deployed to the Lincoln Memorial to protect it and to stop these animals from going and desecrating it. They were spray painting Lincoln Memorial and so on. It was a bad look for the nation, having our national monuments desecrated, but it was a good look right here. I would argue this is a great look, right? You should have law and order.
If you, the government, don't want something to get out of hand, you have the resources to make sure that that does not happen. We can send billions of money to Ukraine, but they didn't want to put National Guard at the Capitol on January 6th. And you have to ask yourself why. Well, you don't really have to ask yourself why, because you know exactly why. I mean, look what they've done since that day. That's it. They got exactly what they were wanting out of that day. Alex Jones himself tried to tell everyone there, hey, don't do this. You're walking into a trap. And they still tried to pin it on Alex Jones, too.
It looked like when the National Guard was deployed. Let's just say there was no graffiti that night or ever again, because nobody wants to mess with a militarized unit that can use military tactics on you to make sure that you're not doing the wrong thing. What am I building up to here? The National Guard is the key to understanding January 6th. Why wasn't the National Guard deployed? Donald Trump wanted them to be deployed. Donald Trump authorized 25,000 National Guardsmen to stand in front of the United States Capitol building just like that. Let me assure you that Ray Epps or Antifa or literally anybody, some guy from the backwoods of West Virginia that's drinking an entire bottle of Jack, that none of these guys would get through the National Guard. I promise you that. I've 100%. Seen these guys up close.
100%.
Nobody's going to mess around. If these...
Well, unless it was Donald Trump, because as we know, when they were driving the Beast, you know, Donald Trump pulled off some Tom Cruise level stunts and did some flips and forced, you know, the Secret Service to turn the vehicle around. If we remember that story, you know, they basically turned Donald Trump into a fucking a ninja, or basically like he was like Ethan Hunt. And I'm like, wait, what? Donald Trump? This is where the 6'3", 215 meme comes into play. Like, you guys make him out to be this legend. We know who Donald Trump is. We know he's 70-something years old. We know everything about him. But you guys want to turn him into like this indestructible Jack Reacher badass level dude. And you're like, oh no, he whipped it around. It's like, it's the Secret Service. What do you think Donald Trump's going to do to the fucking Secret Service? You guys make him out to be this 6'3", 215, no body fat, alpha male, peak physique Donald Trump.
These people were deployed at the Capitol. There would be no January 6th. It'd just be another day in the calendar. So why weren't they deployed? Donald Trump told them to be deployed. Donald Trump wanted peace and security. Donald Trump said march peacefully on that very day. Why weren't they deployed? Well, we now have some very shocking revelations that have popped up. And, of course, this will come as no surprise to anybody who watches our program. We often interview Kash Patel, who claims that he was smeared by the January 6th committee for backing Trump's claims that he authorized the National Guard. Trump advisor says January 6th smear campaign against him is dead. Transcripts suppressed by the January 6th panel were released and corroborate Patel's testimony about the National Guard authorization. Ex-acting Defense Secretary tells the Daily Mail that the January 6th threatened him to keep him silent. So now it turns out that Kash was right, and you can actually read it here. You can go ahead and see the evidence and the documents of Donald Trump authorizing the National Guard to go to the Capitol that day. So who said no? The answer is Nancy Pelosi. And why would Nancy Pelosi say no to the National Guard being at the Capitol? I mean, this is what the Lincoln Memorial looked like in June of that year, and Nancy Pelosi knelt down and prayed to the protesters.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. With her mask on.
What would stop Nancy Pelosi from deploying the National Guard to keep herself safe? It just doesn't make any sense until you actually see this new footage of Nancy Pelosi just released inside of her SUV with the Secret Service in it, because if you're the Speaker of the House, you get the Secret Service. You get Secret Service protection because you're in the line for the presidency. Nancy Pelosi effectively saying, I am responsible for not having the National Guard here, and it was me. It was me the whole time. This, of course, corresponds to a number of other shocking revelations that we know about Nancy Pelosi on that day. Let's listen.
Responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean, the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question of how they had, they don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
Oh, I thought it was Trump's fault. Everything's Donald Trump's fault, right? Everything. You see a meme on the internet you don't like, it's Donald Trump's fault. You see something weird happening in the world today, oh, it's Donald Trump's fault. Oh, they stormed the Capitol, it's Donald Trump's fault. And yeah, she is wearing a mask.
Nancy Pelosi said no to having the United States Capitol look like this. This is a fact. There would not have been a single hand laid on the United States Capitol if the National Guard, like Donald Trump wanted, had been deployed. So this, of course, destroys their entire narrative, along with a number of other narrative-destroying facts, like the chief of police that day.
Could you imagine if Nancy Pelosi wanted to have National Guard there and Donald Trump overrode her, and then this happened? Could you imagine what would be happening to him? Could you imagine the fallout? See, this is the difference in, again, this is why I love Trump. He's fantastic. he tries to play above. Now, again, I think he did it because it was in his first 4 years. That's my theory on this. But he tried to play ball with people that are not interested in playing ball. He's trying to have decency and have standards and morals with people that don't have decency, standard, and morals. That's essentially what's going on here. Now, again, my theory is because he was in his first 4 years and he's trying to, again, he's a deal maker. He's a negotiator. That's who he is. So he was trying to keep his head above water and get to that second term. It's almost like when Barack Obama was talking to so-and-so, somebody from, I think, one of Vladimir Putin's advisors or someone in his administration or whatever, and he's like, once the election's over, I'm going to have a lot more flexibility. And of course, they don't ever talk about that one. But if Trump said that to one of Putin's people, that would be everywhere. That would be everywhere. So I think Trump was trying to work towards getting in that second term, and that's why he plays so nice. But these are people that are never going to play by the rules.
At the U.S. Capitol, continually calling Nancy Pelosi and getting left on red for 70 minutes. Nancy Pelosi waited until the Trump supporters had breached the building. Paid agitators, Antifa members, whatever rabble there was that day. Hooliganism all around. Nancy Pelosi waited until they had breached the building in order to pick up the phone calls from her security team.
The House in charge of security at the Capitol?
So you have the politically appointed Capitol Police Board that's put in place by, you have the Sergeant Arms that's put in place by Pelosi, you have the Senate Sergeant Arms that's put in place by the Senate leadership, and then you have the architect of the Capitol that's put in place by the president. So you have 3 voting members. I'm a non-voting member. I'm the only non-politically appointed non-voting member, and that's kind of how the security oversight works. But it was Paul Irving who immediately said, I'm going to run it up the chain. I'll never forget that, run it up the chain. His chain of command ends at Speaker Pelosi. And I had to wait 71 minutes to finally get an approval at 2:09 p.m. before I could finally reach out and start calling in federal assistance. 71 minutes while my men and women fought on the fought heroically to prevent the Capitol from being from being penetrated. And it took 80 minutes before the first window was broken. So those were critical, essential minutes.
So this Chief of Police, Stephen Sund, is sitting there saying, Nancy Pelosi took 71 minutes to pick up my phone call, and it was 80 minutes from the first breach until the windows were shattered.
And she responded to this leaked video probably quicker than 71 minutes. She was already on with the mainstream media freaking out over this one, and we're going to watch that here in just a minute. So that's the interesting thing. It took her 71 minutes to return this dude's phone call. It took her less than 71 minutes to get on mainstream media and start trying to debunk this because she knew how bad it was. She did not want this thing out there. She is freaking out over this video.
Inside of the building. And what was Pelosi doing? We actually have some footage of what Pelosi was doing. She was doing something that is, if this were a murder mystery, would actually be the murder weapon with DNA on it at the crime scene.
Service said they have dissuaded him from coming to Capitol Hill. They told him they don't have the resources to protect him here. So at the moment he is not coming, but that could change.
Oh, he comes, I'm going to punch him out. This is my mom.
I would pay the fee.
So she's talking about Trump. She says, if he comes, I'm going to punch him out. And everybody focused on that and said, whoa, hey, boom, clap, whatever. Violence against the president or Slay Queen, whatever, But nobody caught the next thing that she says, which is so unbelievably strange. And clearly proves coordination on the Capitol breach. Watch.
I'm waiting for this, for trespassing on the Capitol grounds. I'm going to punch him out and I'm going to go to jail and I'm going to be happy.
I've been waiting for this? For trespassing on the Capitol grounds? Trespassing is what they charge the vast majority of J6ers with. Trespassing. Oh, you were trespassing. And they hit him with a misdemeanor for trespassing. Now, this is an insane thing to say as Speaker of the House because, well, millions of Americans walk into the Capitol every single year. You, right now, can walk right into the Capitol. You just go right in through the Visitor Center. You can walk straight into the Rotunda of the Capitol. You can walk all over the Capitol building. You can walk in Statuary Hall and look at all the... You could book a tour right now. What do you mean trespassing on the Capitol ground? Since trespassing? Who's ever thought of that? Who's ever heard of that? Yet that's what Nancy Pelosi was thinking whilst she's watching J6 on TV. She's literally coming up with she's able to say the charges that they hit like every J6er with, that are currently actually under review at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is probably going to remand these charges down to the lower courts and throw all of the J6 charges into total and complete chaos because it's been so abused. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been abused because people like Nancy Pelosi were far more concerned about how she looked on that day than what her actions were. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is walking here with her video team on the day of January 6th. You can see here where Nancy Pelosi actually slows down so that her camera woman can get the shot. Look at that. It takes you just a second. You have to know. It doesn't take. It's not hard though to see. You can see the camera woman walking, and then Nancy Pelosi does a stutter step in order to make sure that the camera person has the right angle on her. That's how concerned Nancy Pelosi was on January 6th. It's almost like Nancy Pelosi knew something that none of the rest of us knew. Very, very strange that. Maybe she knew that there were federal officers who were encouraging that same trespassing that Nancy Pelosi talks about in the aforementioned clip. Like this. This is undercover body cam. This is undercover body camera of federal officers, Metropolitan Police officers, encouraging J6ers to go into the Capitol, to scale the walls of the Capitol. Help them up. Go, go, go. Help them up. Push them up. Push them up. Go, 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 go. Drain the swamp. That's entrapment, dude. That's what that is. Can anybody explain this footage? Anybody explain what's going on here when a violent protester gets handcuffed, then unhandcuffed, and let free before he gets clapped on the back and fist bumped by the cops who arrested him?
Insane.
What's going on there? What is that? I don't have an explanation. I would like...
Nobody has an explanation. Well, I mean, we know the explanation, but it's absolutely insane that this is just allowed.
To know what's happening there. Something seems very, very strange. Something seems like a setup. Like there was a big, fat setup. And that everything you know about January 6th is a lie. That's it. Everything about January 6th is a lie. And you see clips like this of these people like just peacefully taking their little flags and walking down the halls and saying hi to the cops. Exclusive, Liz Cheney, January 6th committee suppressed exonerating evidence of Trump's push for National Guard. They suppressed information.
So we're going to stop it there because Nancy Pelosi has responded to this leaked video. There is a response from Nancy Pelosi, okay? And this is interesting because Nancy Pelosi just responded quicker than I've ever seen. Like, Nancy Pelosi responded to this leaked video quicker than she responded to the call that they were just talking about. She rolled out of bed like the Undertaker. She set up like the Undertaker, all right, out of the casket. And she's like, call MSNBC. Let me talk to him right now. Insane reaction from her. Like, I can't believe how quickly she responded to this. And she's clearly bothered. She's clearly upset. And I think it's hilarious. So here we go right here.
Why do you think this is stirred up and a brouhaha on the right and in some corners of the media today?
Well, because of the fact is that the President of the United States, the former president, and his toadies do not want to face the facts. And I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more. They're trying to do revisionist history on January 6th. And I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more. But we cannot let us be dragged into their, again, false impression of what happened that day. They know what happened that day.
And I will say this. Listen, you guys know I don't like Nancy Pelosi at all, but I have to give credit where credit is due. Don't get mad at me. Don't downvote the video. But I have to give credit where credit is due. She's very smart, and she knows how to hit you in the nostalgia. So while I don't like her, I got to give some respect, because I, too, appreciate Blockbuster Video. And the fact that she's wearing a Blockbuster Video flag, letting me know, hey, I remember the good old days when you would go to the Blockbuster Video on a Friday night, rent your favorite movie, rent your favorite video game. The fact that she is willing to stand with Blockbuster Video means a lot to me. So thank you, Nancy Pelosi, for wearing your Blockbuster Video flag and letting all of us know that nostalgia is important and we should never forget the good times. Really happy about that.
Of what happened that day. They know what happened that day. And I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more. They know how serious it is and was and continues to have an impact on our country. And yet they want to call the people who were in there hostages. Last night I received the Lincoln Award. I was so proud of receiving that. And I said in my remarks, Lincoln built the dome on the Capitol. He insisted that it be built during the Civil War so that it could show the resilience of America. And to see these people coming through the Capitol with their foul...
You know what's shocking about this crazy old lady? She's more competent than Joe Biden, and she's already like 90% dead. She's like 90% dead, and she's more competent than Joe Biden. That's the scary part.
Deeds and foul actions, waving Confederate flags and Nazi flags under Lincoln's dome was so shameful. And yet this president who incited, this former president who incited this insurrection would not send the National Guard for hours. And I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more. People were harmed, people were killed, but died one way or another. And I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more. And what did he do but try to deny that any of it happened? This is a terrible thing, but let us not take away the attention of what we need to do to go forward. We have to unify our country. We have to bring people together in a way that honors.
Okay, I can't. There's like another 40 seconds of this, and I can't do it. She is insane, and it's pathetic and laughable. It's not even laughable. It's downright pathetic, is what it is.